Howdy folks, my name's Paul. Welcome to my kitchen counter where, as you can see, I have a dozen Dualshock 2 controllers. I bought them in an online auction. I put in a joke bid of $12 and it sold for $10, so that's 83 cents a controller. The listing said tested broken, which might explain why it sold for $10. When I got them home and tested them myself, 3 of them worked without an issue. This one here worked without an issue, but the joysticks are a little chewed up there. This is the worst one physically. Just got a little broken case there. Other than that, everything inside worked just fine. A couple of them seem to have stuck buttons, and a couple of them work except for the D-pad. So it seems like I got a pretty good lot of controllers for $10. So I'm going to tear into one of these. I'm not sure which one just yet. Tear into one and see if I can figure out what's wrong with it and how to fix it and then how to put it back together. So here we go. I decided to work on this one here. It said that the D-pad isn't working. So hopefully it's just something easy, like it's dirty or something, but we'll find out. Before I do that though, I wanted to take a minute to talk about the silver Dualshock 2 controller and how much of a piece of junk it is. It feels flimsy compared to the other ones. It's lighter, as you can see. That finish just doesn't stand up to anything. I had another one of these and it was in rough shape. Seems like a pretty terrible controller. But let's just do one more take. Right. I decided to work on this black one here. Said that the D-pad's broken, so hopefully it's just something easy, like it's dirty or something like that. But before I tear into that and see what's in there, I wanted to take a minute to talk about this silver Dualshock 2 controller. As you can see, it's a piece of junk. This finish doesn't stand up to anything. And it just feels light and flimsy compared to the others. This isn't to be confused with the gray controller. Those are sturdy. This is the silver. They're junk. So we'll get this out of the way and then we'll open this one up and see what's going on. I've been working on these controllers. I've had a couple pretty easy fixes. Of course, I wasn't filming at the time, so I thought I'd go ahead and film tearing this one down and putting it back together. I am not having any issues with it, but while it's all apart, I'll go ahead and show you how I fixed those other two things. Again, it was pretty simple, but pretty common issues too, so might be something that you come across. I'm just going to start by taking out the 6 screws on the back of it. We'll go from there. So with those screws undone, you can just take the case off of there. Now, throughout working on these, I've come across a couple different versions. I've seen ones where this ribbon cable's held down by a sponge sort of thing that goes on the back of the case. It just kind of pushes against it and holds it in place. So I've heard that that's a common issue for those to, that sponge just not becoming too compressed to really do what it's supposed to do, or it just falling off or something like that. So as you can see with this one though, it's in there, connected, has an actual connector, which is nice. And then also the rumble pads here, rumble packs, whatever you want to call them, they're in this little plastic shell. I've seen other ones where they're connected to the controller shell. but I like this one. I like this version better. You just take this one screw out here to get the board off. But then that all just comes off in one piece. Really easy. You don't lose your rumble things. On the other ones, if you do this and it's connected here to the case, you can kind of see where they would put it. In the other ones, then they're just flopping around, and I've actually had them come unsoldered from the board here and had to resolder them to get them to work again. So I definitely like this version, although I have seen this kind of busted up too, this little plastic housing there. So it's all pretty simple, though. You can just take off your joysticks here. Just kind of pull those off. Your buttons up here, little pads there. Those just come right off. I haven't figured out how to undo this without damaging it or unsoldering it or anything. So with this version, I haven't been able to get this flexible PCB out or anything, but probably shouldn't have too many issues with that. Both the issues I had were with this. One of them was just the D-pad wasn't working. That's the wrong side. The D-pad wasn't working. And there's just a bunch of junk in here. Just a bunch of garbage. So it just wasn't making a solid connection. So that was an easy fix. Then the other easy fix was the D-pad wasn't working. Did I say the D-pad in the first one? The button, either way, I don't care. We know what we're talking about now. The D-pad wasn't working because this was broken. This whole thing here. So I don't know how to go about fixing that other than just buying a new one or buying a different controller and replacing it or whatever. Maybe if you have a 3D printer, you could print one or something. I don't have any of that tech, so yeah, I don't really need to pull the rest of this stuff out. It's all pretty clean. I might go back through and clean it again later, but we'll just, I mean, your buttons just come right out. Everything just lifts right out of here, falls out if you turn it over. Same with your with your 1 buttons. One thing to remember though that I've had trouble with at first was these 2 buttons. Make sure you take those out, you pop those out. Those are going to be the last things that you put back in. Otherwise you're not going to have a good connection to this little pressure pad here, and then you won't be able to shoot anybody or aim or whatever you use your 2 buttons for. So I'm just going to get started putting this all back together at this point. You just put these little things back on over it. There's usually little clips or something, or they have the right shape. They usually go on pretty much one way. Same with this. It's hard to get that in there a different way. We can set that off to the side. We'll put our joysticks back on. They are rectangular. It's not a circle, so you do have to kind of line it up. Put these back on. If you see one side's bigger than the other, the big side goes to the back. Just kind of and then you just slide it back into the case. Pretty easy. say pretty easy as I struggle with it a lot. My joysticks were in the way. So keep an eye on that, I guess. Make sure to reconnect this, or screw it back in so you don't have any issues later down the road. The good part about these, though, that are connected is that you don't really pull the board off enough to unroute the cord here, so you don't have to worry too much about trying to reroute it all around that stuff to get it to fit right. We'll put in our 1 buttons. Just snap them into place. You see there's a big clip and a small clip, or there's a number on it. The number faces away from you, which I always thought was strange. As if you're telling someone behind you what buttons you're playing. Seems if you look at it. Anyways, we'll reconnect this. If you notice, I didn't take all the screws out of the actual case. Most of them are still in there, so. So there you go, pretty much done. Now, if you don't take these 2 buttons out first, or before you go to put it back together, if you try to put this case back on here with those in there, this little spot that touches that little spot won't line up right. It's pretty much impossible to get it to line up right sliding it in there that way. So that's why I always leave them out until the end, and you can just snap them on into place. That way you get that nice click. Otherwise, the buttons feel kind of mushy. They still work a little bit, not as well, and then they feel mushy. They just don't feel right. So that's how you take apart one of those, put it back together. And again, if I come across any big issues, I will try to make a video on that and show you how to fix that. Otherwise, these are some pretty easy fixes there. So hopefully I could help you out if you need anything. Again, like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff, comment. I think that's the last thing I missed. And yeah, we'll catch you next time, folks.